We look up at the sky and see freedom, endless possibilities, right? But sometimes, it's also a silent witness to mysteries that chill us to the bone. Imagine a state-of-the-art aircraft, just vanishing or falling from the sky. First, there's silence, then a flood of questions. Investigators dig for answers, but some crashes? They just leave behind more puzzles. It's a sobering thought that worldwide, over 100 planes have disappeared without a trace since the mid-20th century. And even when they find the wreckage, the full story can stay frustratingly hidden in the debris or the crew's last unheard moments. For India, where air travel is more common than ever, this shadow of mystery hangs heavy over some truly heartbreaking tragedies. Hi everyone, and welcome. Today, we're looking into some of Indian aviation's most perplexing air crashes. These aren't just news reports of disasters, they're stories with mysteries that just won't go away, where the official answers don't always seem to tell the whole story, and unexplained events leave everyone scratching their heads. We'll cover incidents from years ago that still have people asking questions, right up to a very recent tragedy that's brought back that all too familiar feeling of uncertainty. We're going to explore cases where the truth is still very much in the shadows. And as new details come out or old files are reopened, you know how it goes. The plot often just gets more complicated. The Emperor Ashoka, a royal mystery in the Arabian Sea. First up, let's go back to New Year's Day, 1978. Air India Flight 855, a Boeing 747 known as Emperor Ashoka, was getting ready for its flight from Bombay, now Mumbai, to Dubai. It had 190 passengers and 23 crew members on board when the majestic aircraft took off into the evening sky. But just minutes later, less than 2 miles from the coast, it crashed into the Arabian Sea. Tragically, there were no survivors. All 213 people were lost. The first thought was instrument trouble and the pilots getting disoriented. The flight data recorder, pulled from the seabed, hinted at a major failure of the attitude director indicator on the captain's side. This gadget tells the pilot how the plane is oriented compared to the horizon. If the captain's attitude director indicator went haywire, maybe showing the right roll when the plane was actually banking left, and if he didn't trust the co-pilot's working instrument, a crash was almost certain. According to this idea, the plane went into a steep left bank, lost height really fast, and hit the water before the crew could get control or even figure out what was happening in the darkness over the sea. But this is where things start to get a bit murky. While a broken instrument and confused pilots sounds like a reasonable explanation, some questions just wouldn't go away. The plane was pretty new, a top of the line for Air India. How could such a terrible failure happen so quickly, so soon after takeoff, without a clearer distress call? Some people questioned how quickly the investigation wrapped up. Most of the wreckage was underwater, making a full recovery and analysis tough. While the official cause was pinned on the attitude director indicator and the captain's response, the suddenness of it all and the lack of any warning from a very experienced crew left a little bit of doubt, a feeling that maybe some details were missed, or were simply lost to the sea. This 1978 crash, with its quick dive after takeoff under puzzling circumstances, now feels eerily similar to more recent events we'll talk about. Charkhi Dadri collision in crowded skies. Let's move ahead to November 12, 1996. The skies over Charkhi Dadri, a village in Haryana, were clear. But they were about to witness the world's deadliest mid-air collision at that time. Saudi Arabian Airlines Flight 763, a Boeing 747 going from Delhi to Dhahran, had just taken off. At the same time, Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907, an Ilyushin 76 cargo plane, was coming down to land in Delhi. Horribly, the two planes collided. The impact was devastating. The tail of the Ilyushin tore through the 747's left wing, crippling both planes instantly. They spiraled down and crashed into fields near Charkhi Dadri. All 349 people on both aircraft died, 312 on the Saudia flight and 37 on the Kazakh plane. The investigation, headed by Justice Ramesh Chandra Lahoti, mainly pointed fingers at the Kazakh crew. The report said the Ilyushin 76 had dropped from its assigned altitude of 15,000 feet to 14,500 feet, and even lower, without getting the okay from air traffic control. This put it right in the path of the 747, which was cleared to climb to 14,000 feet. Language problems were also mentioned. The Kazakh pilots weren't great with English and were relying on their radio operator, who was also talking to their own air traffic control. On top of that, Delhi Airport didn't have secondary surveillance radar back then, which gives controllers exact altitude information. Instead, they used primary radar, which only showed general positions. But there's more to this story. While the main cause was the Kazakh plane descending when it shouldn't have, the sheer size of the disaster and the system-wide problems it showed were huge. Why was a major airport like Delhi operating without secondary radar for civilian planes? Were the communication rules strong enough for the growing number of international flights? Some critics felt that even though the Kazakh crew was directly to blame, the situation they were in, with limited technology and procedures, played a part in what happened. The Charkai-Dadri collision was a shocking wake-up call. It showed how badly India needed to update its air traffic control and enforce stricter communication rules in its booming aviation industry. The haunting question is still there. Could more have been done with the system itself to stop those two huge planes from hitting each other in the sky? Air India Flight 182A bomb in the sky. Lingering shadows. Our next case is one of the most notorious acts of aviation terrorism before 9/11. Air India Flight 182. On June 23, 1985, the Boeing 747, named Emperor Kanishka, was flying from Montreal to London, and then on to Delhi and Mumbai. As it was over the Atlantic Ocean, near Ireland, it vanished from radar screens. There was no distress call. The plane had blown up in mid-air because of a bomb in the forward cargo hold. All 329 people on board, 307 passengers and 22 crew, were killed. This made it the deadliest terrorist attack involving an airplane at that time. Wreckage and bodies found in the ocean confirmed the horrific cause. The investigation quickly pointed to Canadian Sikh extremists. It was believed to be revenge for the Indian government's Operation Blue Star, an army action at the Golden Temple in Amritsar in 1984. The plot was complicated. It involved people checking in bags with bombs on flights that connected to Air India 182, but then not getting on the flights themselves. A second bomb, meant for another Air India flight, actually exploded too early at Narita Airport in Japan. It killed 2 baggage handlers and gave investigators important clues. Even after years of investigation and long trials, only one person, Inderjit Singh Rayat, was ever convicted, for manslaughter and for helping make the bombs. Others who were accused were found not guilty because of a lack of evidence or problems with the prosecution's case. This is where the story gets really complicated and remains incredibly painful for the victims' families. Questions about whether Canadian authorities missed something still hang in the air. Were there warnings that weren't taken seriously? Could the bombing have been stopped? The Commission of Inquiry into the bombing of Air India Flight 182, led by Justice John Major, later said that a cascading series of errors by Canadian police, intelligence agencies, and aviation security allowed the attack to happen. The full story of the conspiracy, who all was involved, and the exact chain of command that led to this awful act are still debated and cause a lot of pain. The shadows of Air India 182 are long, a chilling reminder of how security failures and unsolved conspiracies can haunt nations for decades. Mangalore Air India Express Flight 812. The tabletop runway tragedy on May 22, 2010. Air India Express Flight 812, a Boeing 737-800, was on a scheduled flight from Dubai to Mangalore. Mangalore International Airport has what's called a tabletop runway. It's on top of a hill or plateau, with steep drops at one or both ends. These runways need pilots to be incredibly precise, especially when landing. Flight 812, carrying 160 passengers and 6 crew members, approached Mangalore. But the landing went horribly wrong. The plane overshot the runway, couldn't stop, and plunged down a steep gorge, catching fire. Out of the 166 people on board, 158 died. Only 8 managed to survive the fiery crash. The official investigation said pilot error was the main cause. The Serbian captain, who had over 10,000 hours of flying experience, was found to have been asleep for a large part of the flight. This led to sleep inertia, basically, being groggy and not thinking clearly when he woke up. The court of inquiry found that the captain continued with an unstable approach and touched down too far down the runway, not leaving enough space to stop on the fairly short tabletop surface. The co-pilot had reportedly warned the captain several times to go around, but these warnings were either ignored or not acted on quickly enough. Still, the Mangalore story has its own twists. Aside from the pilot error, the tabletop runway itself was a big factor. While it met international standards, these kinds of runways don't give much room for mistakes. People asked if the airport's runway end safety area was good enough, and if newer tech like an engineered material arresting system could have stopped the plane from overshooting. The discussion also covered crew resource management. Why didn't the first officer's calls for a go-around get a proper response? The Mangalore crash really highlighted the crucial link between human mistakes, tricky airport environments, and the basic laws of flying. While pilot error took center stage, the disaster led to a fresh look at safety at airports with difficult terrain and the ongoing challenge of making sure crews communicate and make decisions well in high-pressure situations. The 2025 Ahmedabad tragedy, a modern enigma, unfolds, and now, we come to an incident that's still incredibly raw, still making headlines, something that has shocked India and the entire world of aviation. The Air India Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner crash in Ahmedabad on June 12, 2025. The flight, Air India 171, was headed to London with 242 people on board. It took off from Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport. Just minutes later, disaster. The aircraft, a modern piece of engineering, just couldn't get enough altitude. It struggled, and then tragically crashed into the residential quarters of the BJ Medical College, terrifyingly close to the airport. In what seems like a miracle, one passenger, a British national of Indian origin, actually survived. He managed to crawl out of the burning wreckage just moments before it was completely consumed by flames. But sadly, all the other 241 passengers and crew died, along with several people on the ground. Ahmedabad, and really the whole country, was thrown into mourning. As we're talking now, just a few days after this catastrophe, the investigation is in its earliest, most vital stages. The black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, have been found. Teams from India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau are working around the clock, with help from international experts from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board and British investigators, to piece together the final, horrifying moments of Flight Air India 171. The questions are, frankly, terrifying, and we're still weeks, maybe months, away from any definite answers. This was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, an aircraft with a great safety record before this, known for its advanced tech and efficiency. The plane had reportedly passed major maintenance checks, and its Rolls-Royce engines had recently been overhauled. The crew was experienced. Yet, it ran into trouble almost right after takeoff. The pilot did send out a mayday call, signaling a severe emergency, but air traffic control couldn't reach them after that. Early guesses, and it's so important to stress that this is only speculation until the official investigation is done, have touched on a few possibilities. A catastrophic engine failure is one. Some experts are wondering about a major bird strike, or maybe even several strikes, hitting both engines. Fuel contamination is another idea floating around. Could the fuel put into the plane at Ahmedabad have been bad, causing a power loss at the worst possible moment? We also can't rule out a technical problem with a critical system, maybe something to do with flight controls or avionics. Videos apparently show the landing gear was still down during the emergency, which would have created a lot of drag and made it much harder for the plane to climb or stay in the air. Adding a really chilling layer to all this, a local newspaper had supposedly run a Father's Day ad just hours before the crash. It featured an animated Air India plane in a way that some people have grimly said looked like a crash. While it's almost certainly a tragic and unrelated coincidence, in an atmosphere so heavy with grief and a desperate need for answers, things like this just add to public distress and guesswork. The 2025 Ahmedabad crash has these unsettling similarities to the 1978 Emperor Ashoka disaster. Both Air India planes, both crashing shortly after takeoff under circumstances that, for now, are a deep mystery. The investigation will be incredibly thorough, looking at every tiny piece of wreckage, every bit of data from the black boxes, and every part of the plane's maintenance history and the crew's actions. The world is watching, hoping for answers, for lessons that can stop such a tragedy from ever happening again. But right now, the story around Air India Flight AI-171 isn't just thick with questions, it's a raw, open wound. A stark reminder that even with all our amazing technology, the skies can still hold profound and terrible mysteries. From the dark depths of the Arabian Sea to the busy skies over Haryana, from the terror of a bomb blast high above the Atlantic to the dangerous edge of a tabletop runway, and now, to the still smoldering questions in Ahmedabad, India's aviation history has these enigmatic disasters woven into it. Each one is a unique tragedy, but they all share a common, nagging feeling that the full story hasn't quite been told. Investigations give us official causes, point out errors, and hopefully lead to better safety. But in these most mysterious cases, the why and the how just keep echoing with uncertainty. When technology fails, it makes us ask about design and upkeep. When human error is blamed, it starts debates about training and pressure. Acts of terror show us weaknesses we always seem to be struggling to fix. And sometimes, like with the fresh grief of Ahmedabad, the answers are still buried, waiting to be carefully brought to light. The plot really does thicken with every new piece of information, every new angle considered, reminding us that trying to find the absolute truth when such terrible losses happen is a complicated journey, often filled with lasting mystery. What do you think about these perplexing cases? Do you have any theories about what might have really happened in these Indian air mysteries? Share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. If you found this interesting, please give this video a like and subscribe for more explorations into aviation's most baffling events and the ongoing hunt for answers. Thanks for watching.